The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Bonjour, Bitcoiners.
Ben Ark from LN Bits,
Hello, good evening, all.
Josh Shigala from the Standard.io,
I come in peace.
Juan Galt from juangalt.com.
Hello there.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, Fed seize $3.6 billion in stolen Bitcoin. Arrest New York City couple in the DOJ's largest crypto bust to date. The United States government has said it has found people attempting to launder the proceeds from the Bitfinex hack. And what people they've found. Not only do they have $3.6 billion in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, they're also a rapper who has an online career where they have more pizzazz than Genghis Khan. And the government's holding on to their frozen embryos, so their lawyer says that they won't run out of town because this is the only place they can get frozen embryos for their future. Dan Eve, this couple, they may have stolen the Bitfinex money. They might have social engineered it. Maybe they got it off the hacker. Nobody knows, but they were trying to launder $4.5 billion in Bitcoin, and it didn't work out. What do you think?
It's crazy. I mean, last week we were talking about proof of keys day, and things evolve so fast. It's now like proof of embryos day. Like you've got to keep your own embryos, right? Otherwise, the government can seize them. Just like with your Bitcoin, you need to have your own private keys. Otherwise, the government can seize it or not. Like these, this. One thing that's interesting about this is it flies in the face of everyone saying, or all the these articles saying, oh, Bitcoin, it's used for money launderers and scavenge. What's the word? Money launderers and criminals and blah blah blah, because they can get away with hiding all these funds. And actually, Bitcoin is it's quite traceable. It's a public ledger, and these people not only were traced down, but they've managed to have the most assets seized in history, second to someone linked to the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme, which is a shame. That Bitcoin's up there with the Madoff seizure, obviously. But the fact is that it flies in the face of anyone that says that it can be used for money laundering because it's traceable. It's a public ledger. They were caught out by doing stuff like I think they used it for Walmart, so they were pretty kind of blasé about the whole thing. Yes, for gift cards, I think they bought a PlayStation or something like that. But Razzlekhan's quite interesting. I was watching. She writes for Forbes, right? So. Not only does she do this sort of rapping thing, and
she also had a famous online presentation. It was something like how to social engineer your way into anything, and it was just unbelievable, slide after slide, describing their social engineering skills.
Oh, she was pretty blatant about it as well, the crocodile of Wall Street, and I think it's quite funny. You watch some of the videos, and they're obviously comedy, right? I don't think she's a serious rapper, but the Bitfinex are going to be shareholders are going to be quite happy, right? Because they're going to have a lot of Bitcoin flowing back to them. Do you think, or is
it's interesting because
take that?
If anyone can remember back, Bitfinex was one of the ones where they printed their own debt token. So they gave all their customers who were robbed that debt token. Then the debt token went down in value, and they bought their own debt back at a lower price. So it really worked out well for Bitfinex, the company. I don't know about any of the people that had their money there, and I don't know what they do now because they've kind of been compensated already with this debt token. Maybe the company just keeps the money. And as far as the U.S. government, I don't know if they give you back all the Bitcoins or maybe just the value it was, when it was stolen. We keep the rest. What do you think?
That's a really interesting question. I think so. First question: does anybody remember what the debt token was called and what's its rating at? Because if those they should the money that was stolen was Bitcoin, not dollars. So the lawyers should definitely try to get the billions of dollars. Now, how long is the DOJ gonna take to give this back? I mean, we're still waiting for the empty Gox money to return to its rightful owners, right? So it could take years, right? But possibly, right? But yeah, like people, what Bitfinex did was they issued a token as debt
BFX.
to their asset holders, and then people traded it and sold it for pennies in the dollar, right, to kind of get something out of it. And then other people traded it up and accumulated it, right? People speculated on that debt. And so now what happens? I think that's going to be an interesting sort of side story to this. But
well, and it was a really major move in Bitcoin where everyone always talks about not printing your own money. Here's a company that printed their own money, distributed it, wiped out a debt, for all we know, bought the debt back at a lower price, and now gets to keep the money. This could be studied in business school forever. This was, again, it's one of those Facebook move fast and break things. And they moved fast. They broke everything. And it doesn't seem like it mattered.
Simon Dixon called it they reinvented bankruptcy. That's what Simon Dixon called it.
It is huge, but now,
a smart way to put it.
Let's get to the technical aspects. Ben Ark, they used to have BitGo, and they had a BitGo system where every time money was withdrawn, it would check with a third party, BitGo, to make sure that you had the 2FA, and then it would do the withdrawals. Obviously, someone turned this off, deactivated it, took it out of the code, and then they were allowed to withdraw as much as they want. Was this a technical hack on Bitfinex? Or do you think somebody called somebody on the phone, sent out some emails,
did some
social engineering?
I think that was Bitstamp.
Different
that
one?
wasn't. Yeah, that wasn't the Bitfinex hack. I think that was the Bitstamp one.
I mean, we were
yeah.
talking before the show about auditing, and how these auditors audit code. They look at it and then you don't know what's going to go wrong with code. So I mean, Bitfinex's back end had some big hole in it. Like they'd audit it, they look at it, and it's not until it's out there in the wild these things get hacked, which is why you should hold your own funds if you can and go with an exchange like Baltoro or Kraken, which has been running for a long time and has proved that they can actually hold on to their customers' funds properly. But now with Bitfinex, a lot of people who had their funds on there, they were getting yield back from staking their coins, weren't they? And there's a lot of people I know who lost a lot of money on there, and then they got that shitcoin token which they were given, and they lost a lot of money because they did sell it, but they sold it for a lot less than the funds were which they had taken. So it would be very interesting to see whether they actually get the funds back. I don't think they will, and if they do, then it will definitely be the dollar value. It wouldn't be the Bitcoin value of the funds which was taken. Obviously, that would be incredible if they did do that, because for these people, it would be almost like a savings account or something, because you get these Bitcoins back when they're worth so much more money. I think it was $71 million worth of Bitcoin which was stolen originally, the 200,000 Bitcoin, and now it's worth 3.6 billion, which is an astronomical amount of money.
No more, 4 point something.
4.5, wasn't it?
I do think the government is going to have to give them
seized.
I think they're going to have to give them all the
seized.
Bitcoin, though. I do think that all the Bitcoin's coming back. The question is if the company distributes them or if these debt tokens got them out of their requirement. I mean, if you've already been paid debt tokens, why should you get Bitcoin?
Because I'm a victim of Mt. Gox. I did take an interest in how Bitfinex dealt with their hack. And I kind of found it fascinating, actually, the way that they issued first of all, the BFX token, but they went ahead then and created something called recovery right token or something like that. There was this second token which hack victims took a share in another company called iFinex. There's a whole layers of it, but then this is the interesting one. Then in around 2019, they created another token called Leo, something like that, and Leo, the promise was if any funds get recovered from the hack, they will buy Leo tokens and burn them with those funds.
Oh wow!
So,
that's contractual. Yeah. I mean, they were like bringing up Mt. Gox. I mean, this was the interesting part was that they didn't just have to close shop and then everyone lose their money and it all goes to lawyers and litigators and whatever else. They were able to continue to operate, even though a lot of Bitcoiners lost huge chunks of money. With Mt. Gox, it was just game over as soon as they were hacked.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still waiting. The lawyers are still munching through all the money that's owed on the little bit that Mark.
Well, I do have an update on my exciting Mt. Gox coins. they've been sending me emails for, what has this been, 5 years, 7 years, something like that. And I finally got around to where I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to log in. I'm going to find out how much money they owe me. And for all these emails they've been sending, it must be something, right? There's
9 years now.
60 cents. 60 cents in there. And they're still going to send me 10 more emails, all in Japanese, followed by a translation, like over and over again for the 60 cents. I don't even know that they could give it back to me in dollars. So maybe someday I'll get a check. But I'm still holding out for that.
Well, the worst part of that whole Mt. Gox deal is they had all these creditors that are owed. And the Mt. Gox team found 200,000 Bitcoin behind the couch. Or something like that, 20,000 or something, some amount. And since then, they were basically going to sell all those Bitcoin, but that would absolutely crush the market, and it did. We saw 2017 got blamed, the dump on 2017, the bear market got blamed for being triggered by the first sell-off of these coins, and everyone went, whoa, can you not just do a market order with this shit? Like, can you just, ask some people in the know? Anyway, and then basically Mark went through the courts or something and went for another mechanism, some sort of legal instrument in Tokyo to then basically make it so that the creditors can get the Bitcoin back rather than getting fiat equivalent back. And this all got passed. Everyone's now signed it and said, yay, let's do it. But the biggest thing that stopped that is a company out of the US, which Mark was trying to partner with. And this company has been basically trying to sue Mt. Gox for everything, like billions and billions, saying that we would have been as big as Coinbase if you hadn't screwed up. And it's like, hang on. So you're trying to screw every creditor for your strange fake ass dream world where somehow your business did as good as Coinbase, if only. And anyway, so they've been basically holding everyone at ransom, and this is why it's taken so super long. So I've kind of found it interesting how Bitfinex dealt with that. I don't think it was perfect. I certainly don't think that, but I do think it was an interesting way, because everything in crypto is all about trying new things, trying things better than the old way, rather than these companies just going bust and going through 15, 20 years of legals, while lawyers are basically taking as long as they want, and the longer they take, the better for them, because they chew through all that money. And rather than that, them just going, okay, let's tokenize the debt. I found it fascinating.
Well, and fun fact, so the Bitfinex hack is reported to have been a hack of a 2 of 3 multi-sig. One of the keys was held by Bitfinex, the other by BitGo, and then there was a backup key that wasn't used. And if I remember correctly, the BitGo key was basically, there was some sort of automated or semi-automated process, right? Like some sort of email manual authentication. And I'm guessing through some sort of social engineer or something, that automation of signing of the BitGo key was triggered, and that's how they got all the money out. That's how I recall it. There's something like that. So
well, there's a huge deal after that, because everyone was like, oh, how can you break BitGo and how can you break multisig? And it was, you automate it, and because you have to do it 100 times a day or 1,000 times a day. Whenever you're doing a withdrawal, you can't wait for BitGo to check the withdrawal, so you just automate it, and then it doesn't matter at all as a security step.
I mean, this was years ago too, right? Like, I'm sure it's a lot better now, but
when you look through, when you
stand corrected, then Thomas, that was Bitfinex then.
Haha.
When you look through their old YouTube channels, this couple, they were kind of scammy. Like, they had like an email marketing business thing, which she was trying to kind of push, obviously, till they ripped everyone off and took all their money and didn't have to do that so much. And he was scammy as well. He had some like scammy sounding startups annoying, scammy sounding startups. For
Well, what do you think though, Ben? Do you think this was a social engineering hack? Do you think that
I think
again,
there's
for the people at home, like
yeah.
social engineering is like I call you up on the phone, I pretend I'm from tech support, I get another number, I email some guy, I pretend I'm from tech. You know, you keep doing all these pretend things, you keep talking to people, and you talk your way in. So there's a technical problem, you know, somebody hacks your thing, and then there's a social problem where someone just talks their way in. Do you think that's what this could have been?
Perhaps, but I kind of have more of a feeling that they kind of like script kiddies, and they were just like writing little scripts and then just bombarding.
But these guys aren't the hackers.
Scripts.
Like this is the weird thing about the stories, that these people are not the hackers.
Are you sure
they're
about
being
that? I
accused
think
of,
that's what it says.
No,
That's
yeah,
what
they're saying that it explicitly says in multiple articles of the ones that we're sort of looking at, that these guys are not being accused of being the hackers. They're accused of money laundering a portion of the funds. And which is the funny thing, is that there's all this smokes and mirrors around this really cringy rapper, right? And
but it's what they can charge them for. They can charge them. They caught them for trying to launder the money, but they can't like charge them for stealing the funds in the first place because the evidence.
Well, there's a lot of question there too, because remember we're dealing with a bunch of criminals here, so maybe they stole it from the hacker, maybe they social engineered it from the hacker.
No, I think
why would the hacker give them all his money? Like
maybe they bought it from the hacker.
He's somehow associated with his previous company, I believe.
Yeah, when you look,
startup.
Yeah, when you look through their kind of like older YouTube videos and social media stuff, like they were kind of tech savvy and they were kind of scammy-ish. They were into scammy things like trying to make an easy, quick buck. So I think they're kind of prime for actually being the hackers. And she comes across as like very shrill and annoying and a bit of a dumbass or whatever. But I think she's like on the spectrum. She's actually high functional. And I think that she's probably a very capable person, and he is as well. So
I did read a great article where the article said humor should be taken as a sign of intelligence. Too many people see the goofy videos, they see what she's doing, and they're like, she must not be smart. But really, it seems like the opposite. She was able to make goofy videos because she was in touch with herself. She did know she was being silly, and that, you know, humor, we shouldn't just write it off. They're like, oh, they're too funny to be the guys.
I also think they're like, they kind of, I mean, obviously they caused all this heartbreak and everyone hates them for it, but like there's something endearing about this Asperger's-y, shrill, microdosing, like tech wannabe New York hipster being the hacker. And I think that it's just so memeable, and I can just imagine her kind of being part of Bitcoin, wrapped up in Bitcoin's history, and her reappearing at different times, you know, on Twitter or whatever. But yeah, no, it's very interesting story.
Dan, you move in the cringe rap circles. Where do you, maybe I think you're the hacker. Right?
I could be.
Isn't she now like the most successful the most successful rapper on the planet as well, like monetary wise, because of the money she's made from
in theory, yeah,
$4 billion. And think about the rap she could make now in jail. Like, I was laundering $4 billion on the outside. Now I'm doing it up on the inside.
Yeah.
But it is interesting how they, you know, how did they get access to that 3.6 billion? Because it doesn't directly say, none of the articles directly say that it was seized from them. It just says it was seized and they're linked. It doesn't say.
And then they had access to the private keys of another wallet that was associated. But it's not, the accusation is not made anywhere that they're the hackers. In fact, the way that this is portrayed is that they had access to keys that had the original funds, and so they're not hitting them for the hacking yet, which is interesting. You do have to ask, like, how the hell did they end up with like a majority or at least a large portion of these funds, and end up
that's
trying
exactly
to
what I'm saying.
them.
That's what I want to know. They're obviously not the hackers. They're ridiculous.
I bet you.
Where they get this money?
My
prediction is the Feds hack. Here's my prediction: the Feds hacked Bitfinex, and then they, you know, empty Gawk style, and then they passed it on to these, you know, New York rappers.
I want to hear the interview. I want her to be like, one day we got an email where someone offered us $3.6 million to launder, and we said, okay, why not?
It was
marketing.
Life was told to be this way.
There was a prince who had the money of the lawyer, you know, that classic thing.
It was checked out. It seemed okay. It was a good.
They
actually got the money.
They were pumping out these stupid like startup ideas until the hack, and then when the hack happened, you can see that their content sort of lessened, and they started to do more of the, you know, wrapping stuff and all this other silly content. So no, they're the people who hacked the funds, who got the funds. Definitely, it's not somebody else. I don't think.
Doesn't speak very well for the security guys. I mean,
well, so there was reading between the lines of the articles, because a lot of the articles they said, well,
by New York.
They had like a sophisticated laundering operation where they would quickly go in and out of other cryptocurrencies. And we all know that that's actually like for chain analytics. If you've got X amount going, to a transaction, and then that X amount happening on something like Monero, and then suddenly, well, you can't see it on Monero, but then half an hour later you have the same amount then being shifted in Bitcoin. You can say, well, okay, well, we've lost the connection here and here, but the amounts are the same. So, and if you don't like have space between those transactions when you're jumping in and out of chains, it becomes very easy to trace. So it didn't sound as sophisticated as just by when you actually read the articles, it says that they were doing these fast transactions in and out of chains. And
time analysis.
But they did say that there were direct transactions to a $500 Walmart card. They could literally chase, from the wallet to a PlayStation bought at a Walmart. So that's pretty interesting that if they were that clever, that they dropped the ball on something so simple, right?
That's what people do, though, isn't it?
They become complacent.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really curious if they used Wasabi or Samurai. I really want to hear the details on this.
If you hacked like $4 billion, there's not much you can do with it. Like you can hand it on to your children, and then your children have this problem, or your grandchildren, or whatever. Like someone's always going to come looking for their $4 billion. Like it's just too big.
You're gonna buy your way into a country or something, or buy a country. That's your best bet.
Buy a bond, buy a Bitcoin bond somewhere.
They should have went to El Salvador. All right, let's move on to the exit question. Exit question: which style of bankruptcy do you prefer? The Mt. Gox style, where the company goes away completely and you get strange emails in Japanese about your 60 cents for like 10 years? Or this crazy Bitfinex style, where the money disappears completely, but you get a strange debt token that you sell for less money than it's worth, but then the money all comes back anyway? Dan, Eve, which do you prefer?
Well, I think the second involves a shitcoin. And whilst it kind of seems like a nice thing to like print a token that gives you some sort of value, it seems like people are going to be worse off than if they just got the Bitcoin back, like what's happening in Mt. Gox. But it does say in a number of articles that the victims will be given their Bitcoin back, rather than saying like Bitfinex will be given the Bitcoin back to give to their victims. It says the victims. So whether they're going to do something direct because of the Bitfinex token that was created, I don't know. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see this one play out.
Obviously, this money belongs in a museum. The United States government should use this money to make a Smithsonian museum in all 50 states. 50 states, 50 museums. Matt Damon. Ben Ark, do you like the Mt. Gox style bankruptcy or the strange Bitfinex debt token style? Futuristic.
I don't prefer the Bitfinex version, but I prefer the concept of the Bitfinex version if it was done better, which it would be done now. If it happened now, then hopefully an exchange would do the Bitfinex style. They could continue operations, but in a way where people would lose less money. But now I'm just sort of sat here with popcorn thinking, can the government hold on to $3.6 billion worth of Bitcoin without any of it leaking out and getting nicked by law enforcement or whatever else? Like, who are they pulling? I imagine they've got the Gemini twins in there, and they're like advising them on how to secure the Bitcoin or whatever. But so I imagine they've got some good talent around them securing it, but it's just like, can the government hold this amount of money and not fuck it up? Like, that's the big question.
They're just going to have to pay their tech guy more than $4 billion to keep track of it. That's all you have to do. Joshua Shigala, your thoughts? Which bankruptcy style do you prefer?
It's an interesting question. I actually like the Bitfinex style one. Having gone through Mt. Gox one, it's pretty horrible. It's just slow and dealing with lawyers and stuff. What I liked about the Bitfinex one, if you did hold their debt tokens, they did actually get made. That Bitfinex was such a profitable business for a long time that they managed to actually pay back from profits long ago, and flatten everyone out. So it was that did actually work out. And now there's all this other stuff. I don't know, they did multiple, like I said, multiple coins, and I didn't really keep track because I didn't lose anything in that hack. But it was just interesting seeing it in the beginning. And I like this creative mechanisms. I think the future is a little bit, and we might see it roll out now actually, is a little bit of a mixture of the two, where, you know, if the funds are returned eventually. And I think in the future as well, I mean, this was while crypto was still full cowboy stage. And now we're already starting to see insurers underwriting wallets. So now that this is happening, we might see people, if there is a hack, basically get made whole very quickly. So through maybe insurance, I don't know. But I mean, some of these hacks are absolutely enormous that it could absolutely destroy an insurance company as well.
It's interesting you mentioned earlier, Josh, about a Leo coin where you could bet on Bitfinex getting their money back and you'd be rewarded if they found the money. Mt. Gox, while not set up by them, but there was a similar service at the time called something like Mt. Gox coins, where you could purchase from other users their accounts. And if they ever got any money back, you were then supposed to get the money from those coins. I don't know if it worked. I don't know if the Japanese bankruptcy court recognized these strange agreements from Gox coins or whatever. But it is interesting to see the speculation side of these exchange collapses. Everyone's always like, we have a plan, we can make it for you, and we just need 10% of the gross.
Yeah, it wasn't really a coin. It was more like a different account where they would buy, I can't remember, it was like, I don't know, it was something, but maker, oh, no, it wasn't.
There's also a great thing at the time where everyone was like, should I keep my money in, you know, in Bitcoin on Mt. Gox that are frozen, or in USD that's frozen? And there's different opinions on which the bankruptcy court would give you money back first, or if they'd give you Bitcoin, if they'd ever give you Bitcoin, if they'd give you the value of the Bitcoin. And even now, the Mt. Gox people are still waiting at home, still waiting for their money, any of it.
Yeah.
Juan Galt, your thoughts? Which bankruptcy style do you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, I may be a shitcoin minimalist, but I'm definitely leaning towards this particular optimistic shitcoin. So I would go with the Bitfinex path. However, I think it's going to be really interesting. And I'm just looking at the price of Leo, and it doubled in the past like 2 weeks. So there you go. Yeah.
So when did the hack news come out? Was it?
It's been this week. I mean, past few days for sure.
Right. So there was some front running on that news as well.
Probably. I mean, the price looked pretty good. Like the price was definitely bullish, but there was that obviously front running, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if I was
agent Karl Marx Force,
That's right.
an investigator in that case, and I busted these people, I would have, you know, and we saw this sort of level of weird gray corruption, but also full on corruption in the Mt. Gox. Sorry, not the Mt. Gox, the Silk Road takedown. There was all sorts of jiggery pokery going on there with agents stealing like thousands of Bitcoin and threatening and chasing other people down all over the world to try and like dox them. And these were like official agents, but working with the power that they have in the background to be able to then, basically privately profit from the machinery that they had behind them. It's stunning.
And I think that's the question. Like, how? Like, I want to see if the Bitcoin actually returns to Bitfinex. One thing is, can they secure it? The other thing is, will they return it? Right? I mean, the DOJ has been kind of sketchy the past few years, depending on how you look at it. Right? Maybe they'll just keep it. Right? Couldn't they? Right? Like, you look at what they're doing, what they're trying to do in Canada. Like, they might not have the power to do that or the legitimacy to do that today. But look at what they're trying to do with the GoFundMe in Canada. Right? Like, the mayor of Ottawa is like, well, we should probably keep some of that money so we can pay for the expenses of this protest. Right? And like they want that money. They're like eyeing it. Right? So we'll see what happens.
I don't know. I think the DOJ will give them their money back. They'll give them the full Bitcoins and they won't lose it. Even though there is, like you say, potential for scam, potential for clawback. I also don't think the Ottawa mayor is going to get any of that money either. If you cancel a fundraiser, you have to refund the fundraiser. You can't say, oh, it was for puppies, but now we're using it for kitties. It's just not fair. But let's not get into that issue yet. Ben, do you have more on this?
No, not really. No.
All
I did,
right.
but I forgot what it was. But I did.
You looked all unmuted and ready to go. I was going to throw you back in, but let's move on to the next issue. As Juan was saying, issue 2, trucker protests. Recently, the Ontario and Canada has called for a state of emergency. There's been an active protest. Now, let's just try to get some of the particulars out of the way. Originally, the truckers were protesting that if they, as Canadian truckers, went into the United States, a country that is full of virus, and came back to Canada, they would have to either be vaccinated or spend 2 weeks in quarantine, which would obviously destroy your business as a trucker. The truckers union was okay with this, with I believe 80% of the union not supporting the protest. The Canadian people are okay with this, with almost 80-90% of them being vaccinated as well. However, these protests became international and interesting to Bitcoiners when the protesters, like you guys alluded to earlier, their GoFundMe and other centralized fundraising websites relying on credit cards and other traditional technologies that we've known for years don't work for these kind of political type fundraising. Their money was seized, and the protesters, in an interesting move, turned to Tallycoin. Tallycoin, yes, the website that was brainstormed by myself, instituted by DJ Booth from Australia, who also made the World Crypto Network and Mad Bitcoins web pages. Through kind of one of those things, Tallycoin allows you to fundraise for anything, really, and it just sends the money to your Bitcoin or Lightning address. Tallycoin has a page like this where it has some information about your fundraiser, but can't touch any of your money. So more along the Bitcoin lines of this, maybe we'll talk a little bit about the protest. Ben, Ark, what do you think about the idea of Bitcoin being this dual use technology where it's good for liberals, it's good for conservatives, it's good for extreme protests, it's good for non-extreme protests? Bitcoin itself doesn't care. And that gives a lot of groups, whether left or right, marginalized groups, the ability to suddenly raise funds, not have them frozen, not have them taken away by the legal system, which previously could just do whatever it wanted, regardless of left or right.
Yeah, I mean, it's ambivalent, isn't it? It's apolitical. Anyone can use it. So, you know, the Jews in Nazi Germany could have used it to secure their wealth in a way which is easy to transfer over borders. And then some right-leaning truckers can use it to accept donations through Tallycoin. Huge props to Tallycoin and DJ Booth. I mean, it's really exciting to see this project, which people use. Like, it's a useful project and a great website, and it's got that amazing DJ Booth style to it. But then to have it like plastered all over the news and people talking about it openly, I think is absolutely fantastic. And Thomas, like you say, this is something which you theorize for many episodes. You would say, you know, well, this a GoFundMe type thing needs to exist. Do it on Bitcoin. This is how you do it. It'd be really easy to do, and it would work. And then DJ Booth went and made it, and so it must be quite rewarding in a way to see.
Well, and like you say, Ben, it was great. It was in the mouths of every right-wing commentator. Tucker Carlson, who I disagree with very much, said Tallycoin, and the way they say it, they haven't really investigated it much. They say it like it's equal to Kickstarter or whatever, or GoFundMe, like a massive corporation, Tallycoin. and I know it's like one guy and like me sending him ideas and Max Hillebrand helping out and the World Crypto Network, all of us kind of beta testing it, kind of just, you know, testing it, trying.
I'm kind of kicking myself because I was trying to collaborate with DJ Booth on making like an extension for LM Bits, and where you could like easily get the funds sent to LM Bits. I don't know how we were going to do it, but DJ Booth did his part. Actually, it was me. I kind of flaked out because I was busy with other stuff. So I was sort of kicking myself. I was like, damn, could have ridden that train a little bit. But
well, it's funny because he was also trying to rename the software to a better name and to refactor it, do all this stuff to it. And he's like, oh, now it's famous under the old name and it's the old code, it's the old version, like whatever he was going to plan. You know, I don't even know if he needs it. So,
and I noticed a bunch of the campaigns on there as well have kind of been riding on the back of it. They've all been having donations. just because people are going on there funding the truckers and thinking, oh, what else can we fund? And so if anyone's got a project,
Well, and that was always what I'd said too. Is always we were gonna, if you can put the fundraisers next to the other fundraisers, people will give 10 to this one, will give 5 to that one, and
you see it
I didn't really want it to be extreme right wing protests, but yeah, it's one of those things like you say, Ben, where it is Bitcoin's neutral, and that's what I said forever. Bitcoin's inevitable. It's happening. It's good for both sides, and it's neutral. It doesn't care.
I mean, I didn't realize. I mean, I'm personally, I'm vaccinated, I wear a mask, all that stuff. I believe in all that, but I don't like the idea of people being forced to be vaccinated. But I didn't realize they obviously had that quarantine option there. So through the press, it's kind of being, through the lens, it's kind of being diluted down. So it's just they're being forced to be vaccinated. So that's what the process is about. But I mean, truckers are a huge political force. Andrew Yang talks about this in his Human Capital book about if you have with the UBI, if you have driverless cars, which will happen within the next couple of decades, truckers own their own trucks. They're incredibly important to US infrastructure. Just by blockading a few roads here and there, they can bring the country to its knees. So I kind of feel that this thing which is happening with these truckers in Canada is it's like, they're flexing their strength. And it's probably a good thing for their unions or whatever, because when the driverless trucks come along, then there's going to be a big fight which they're going to get involved in. So it's kind of interesting to see how all that pans out. But yeah, I've seen Tallycoin up there on the big screen is very exciting.
Oh, you're right, Ben. That could be an even larger protest if the truckers try the same thing to protest blockading cities versus the self-driving software. And we'll see how it goes. Okay, Josh, are you ready? Here you go. What do you think? They're raising money with Bitcoin. They have their own political issues.
They raised with GoFundMe. They got screwed with that. This is really what highlights how scary these centralized systems are, digital centralized systems. And then they tried with get funds or something, some
kind of a religious type website, but it was structurally it was the same as GoFundMe. It was centralized. It used Visa. I mean, it was the same thing. Yeah.
And so this time it wasn't them freezing the funds. It was like higher up levels of just basically taking the funds. So Bitcoin is definitely the thing. But what happens now is that there's this for the normie, I hate that term, but just for the ease of use, they will take that and try to convert it to other things. What the great thing about this is that if Coinbase got it, they would also freeze the funds because there's very large players involved here. And so really what's beautiful about these moments, these watershed moments, is that, hey, this person's giving me a jerry can, I'll give you some sats for that. And instead of cashing it out and using the fiat to fund things, the hope is that, hey, stay away from the fiat because it will get frozen. Let's just get this economy flowing. And this is the beautiful thing about side projects. And look, I just want to be on here because and say that I've been obsessively watching this roll out. And they aren't extreme right people. They are normal people. They're normal from the left, from the right, normal grannies, all sorts. The media's definitely got a massive slant of picturing these people as right-wing. They just don't want force. And a lot of them are vaccinated as well. They're like, I'm seeing a world heading towards just constant control. And when I'm driving the truck through QR codes and scanning and what my health is and what this and that, and they don't want their kids to grow up in that, and they don't want their kids masked and stuff like that. So they just had enough. After 2 years, they've had enough, and they're normal people. And to slant this as an extreme right thing is playing into the same weird thing. Like there's Sikhs there, there's blacks there, there's whites there, there's American Indians, there's Canadian Indians, there's Asians, there's all races there going, what the hell? And the media and Justin Trudeau are like, oh, they're all Nazis and right-wing, white supremacists, gay-hating, and it's just shocking what we've seen. And it's like, huh? Wait, in what reality? I've seen countless of streetwalkers talking to people on the road, not the media, normal people walking and interviewing, and everyone's like, hey, man, I love you, blah, blah, blah. All different ethnicities, gay people, left people, right people, all just wanting their freaking freedoms. That's all they want. To choose. And look, whatever you think, you've got to look at the data by now. We've been sold pretty much snake oil. Maybe it helps these things, but to force everyone, something that's causing countries like Israel that have had 4 boosters now, and they've got more cases than anybody by far. And it's like, hey guys, one day we need to look and go, hey, you guys have sold us some pieces of shit. You're fucking up our freedom and everything that we've worked so hard for from the Magna Carta. And it's hard worked for. Death and destruction and 2 world wars for freedom. And not only 2 world wars, but America's gone freedom around the world. And actually probably to get oil and resources, but you under the guise of freedom, and yet we're just like, oh yeah, let's line up in front of shops because I want to buy a freaking handbag and have to scan QR codes and have my kid for 8 hours a day behind a freaking mask. I had COVID. It was a piece of freaking shit. It was nothing. And my kid had 1 night of fever. Fuck you with your fucking bullshit COVID crap. End this shit.
And what about the freedom for the people who live in Ottawa? What about the non-aggression principle and their honking their horns all night? Can't do business.
Yeah, let's not do the world COVID network.
It just does seem like they've violated the non-aggression principle. It just does seem like they stepped over the line there. Like seems like the government was interfering with their lives, and now they're interfering with a lot of other people's lives.
Hey, they live in the capital.
Just 2 more weeks to slow the spread. Just 2 more weeks to
Again, dude, the science can't be delivered on a schedule. Like, I'm sorry, we delivered a vaccine in record time, and you won't take it.
Listen,
it's very possible that rebelling
as
against these controls is making the controls go on longer.
How many do you need? 90%.
I tell you what was cool.
Again, if they're gonna go to the U.S. and they're gonna come back, and the U.S. is full of virus. It seems like if you weren't an international trucker, going to a strange country full of virus, maybe you wouldn't need the vaccine. Maybe you would just, be a Canadian trucker. It seems like when you're connected to society and civilization and things are interconnected and gets complicated, that yes, there are rules and regulations of countries trying to protect themselves from virus. It doesn't seem so autocratic.
This virus is endemic. This virus is one of the most viral
it's endemic now because people didn't take the vaccine. I mean, again, like self-fulfilling prophecy.
Did you see in the article?
Trump closed the borders.
Hold on,
let me speak.
Did you see in the article?
Trump closed the borders from China in January, and the virus still got in. Did you see how? Did you see how? Been known for months.
He didn't actually close the borders. There's still trucks.
Did you see how in the article they talked about satoshis? They were like, the truckers are trying to raise 4.2 billion satoshis, and I think they've got 2 point something satoshis. I thought it was super cool how they weren't talking about Bitcoin. I love it
when 21 billion satoshis. Yeah,
and it was in mainstream press as well. Like, I love it in mainstream press when they start to get a handle on Bitcoin culture. Like small Bitcoin culture, and it starts to penetrate larger culture. And they're saying, "Oh, they're trying to raise 4.2 billion satoshis," and I thought it was amazing. Like, it's no longer they're trying to raise 0. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, I think Tallycoin defaults to satoshis. So unless they figured out the interface to switch it over to Bitcoin, which they probably can't, they were stuck with satoshis.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool. I liked it.
Yeah. Sats. And internally we can keep fighting about bits and sats.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're still fighting that one out. But I agree with Josh. If they had done this on Coinbase, they would have had that same result that we're always so frustrated with, where we're like, Bitcoin's invincible and it's unseizable and all this stuff. But their Coinbase account got shut down because they trusted a centralized provider. And once again, you have to read the label. Like I think Trace would say, you have to have your own keys, especially if you're going to do kind of this protest-related fundraising, anything kind of politically sensitive. You have to own your own keys. But
what's cool is now DJ Booth as well, because he doesn't have custody of any funds. which is, it's great. I mean, like it's so tempting when you're running a service like that just to be a custodian because it's easier, but he doesn't have custody of any of the funds at all. So he can't be targeted by these authorities.
Until the overreaching government says like, well, you're kind of like Silk Road because you set up a site that allows people to get funds to do nefarious things that we disagree with.
Ooh.
You know, that they could.
I do think that's a potential problem for the site. And it's one of those other problems where the people, unfortunately, the bad people can keep changing. So it's almost impossible to keep a site like this online because at first if you're like, okay, let's ban all the Nazis. But then the Nazis start calling themselves puppies. And you're like, oh shit, we have to ban all the puppies, even if it's a legitimate puppy deal, you know? And it just, that spirals and there's no way, it goes back to that content thing where Facebook is a common carrier, Craigslist is a common carrier, or Facebook and Craigslist and other things like it are responsible for everything that happens on their platform, which is what I think the standard they would hold DJ Booth to. So,
well, and even if Tallycoin doesn't have custodial control over the bitcoins being donated, who created that crowdfunding page, or like who is Hong Kong Huddle, and how are they distributing the funds?
It's
how
something.
How are they going to distribute $500,000 or whatever to 5,000 truckers in a way that's fair? I mean, I don't have any reason to distrust Hong Kong Huddle, but who are they, right? And so I think the only way
I've seen online, it's really strange. It's like a group of 4 Bitcoiners, including BTC Sessions, who I think is anonymous still, and maybe another guy. They seem like old school, cool Bitcoiners. So I hope they do good with the money.
Yeah, they're probably OG.
I totally agree with you.
If he's
anything could happen.
He might be anonymous.
You know?
Yeah, he might be pseudonymous, but his face is everywhere. Like he's very much a public person. But I mean, so I think the only way to really do this in a decentralized way without there being a kind of custodial point is actually go there and give all the truckers Bitcoin wallets and have them take selfies and put them on social media and let them spread the QR codes, and then maybe just rank and list the QR codes on a Twitter feed and just cycle that through so that people see them. Something like that would probably actually be more decentralized, because right now you still have a custodial control, even if they have a multi-sig. However, it's a much better effort probably than GoFundMe, because GoFundMe obviously got smacked down. Now, I have a lot of things to say about the way that this is being covered. I mean, first of all, right-wing truckers, this is completely absurd, right? Like, you know who's being right-wing and fascistic? The Canadian government shutting down churches, you know, because they think that they don't have a right to pray to their God, right? Like that's fascistic. Locking down trans movement across states in Canada, locking down small businesses because they think that it's their right to decide what people do with their health.
We didn't know
that's
much
fascistic.
About this virus.
If this was done, if people were asked their papers to travel across the borders in Canada, in Germany in the 40s, that's the kind of shit that the actual fascists were doing.
But
so
it's really interesting because the techniques that you need to use to fight a pandemic turn out to be the same techniques you guys are talking about. It's like they kept people apart. And it's like, well, we were trying to fight a pandemic. They checked people's IDs to see if they've been vaccinated. Well, we were trying to fight a pandemic. It's almost as if the same techniques that you opposed to in Nazi Germany are also the same techniques you'd have to use to fight a pandemic, because what would you do otherwise? Would you just give up? You're like, humanity gives up. It gives up against this virus. We're just going to let everyone die. Right? We're just going to give up. Next time there's a scientific problem, we just give up.
None of it worked.
None of it
Again, you can't judge that. That's like through your prison.
Notice this.
There would be more dead. If we didn't do anything, there would be more dead.
You don't know that. That's total speculation.
You don't know that either.
That's total speculation. You don't know that any of this stuff worked. What about Israel? 90%
when you have a pandemic, you try to fight the pandemic,
and they're still got a huge.
You try to fight it. The idea here is that you just want to do nothing.
That's not true. That's not true. 2 weeks,
two
weeks after this virus, when we're seeing people dropping dead in China from all this bullshit that you're getting fed, I was like, get rice, get ready, get masked. I got prepared like crazy.
World COVID
now we have 2 years of info about what works, what doesn't. We've got studies. We've got vaccines that are
you
just
don't believe in studies and evidence. You believe in studies.
Oh yeah, no, we're all anti-science, anti-vaxxers. Yeah, this is the other thing.
When it comes down to the line, you're like, when it's on your side, you believe it. When it's not on your side, you don't believe it.
No.
And generally, if you're ever opposed, you just drop so many false points that no one can refute them all. It's a strategy.
This is about civil liberties. This is not an anti-vax movement. This is an
It's a pandemic.
Apartheid movement. It's an anti-lockdown, anti-mandate.
Not a real pandemic.
And that's total
If there was a real pandemic, more people would be dead.
The thing is,
Yeah.
like, if you have a look at like places like the Ukraine, there was a while there where they were having pandemics or every all the time, like constantly, and for years, and they were getting locked down, they were getting shut down. And then eventually, the people realized that doctors were like spreading stuff and pharmaceuticals were spreading, and everyone revolted. So they basically trashed and burned doctors, and they went really crazy. Suddenly, they didn't have it anymore. After that, they didn't have any more pandemics until now.
Like your, I like your toothbrush, Josh.
You like that? Yeah, it's my kid's toothbrush.
It's my anyway, I know it's very hard to, because this is obviously a COVID topic, but people are watching the World Crypto Network, not the World COVID Network. So let's move on to the next topic.
Yeah,
sorry, Dan.
I'm just so over it. I'm just so over it.
But so just a few points. So I think Skeptic 33 raised a very good point, is that that they're raising the funds, but who's actually not just who's distributing it, but where's the off ramp, right? So these you can't pay for Bitcoin with your gas at the moment. So there's still some form of off ramp that they've got to go through. But the whole thing, without trying to sleep back into the politics, is that like the whole point of Bitcoin is that it's censorship resistant, right? And so what we are seeing is lots of people that are into Bitcoin who are now saying, well, they shouldn't really be able to raise funds because it's a cause that I don't agree with. They're extreme right-wing fascist, like crazy people. But isn't that the thing, that with Bitcoin everyone has a voice? They have a monetary voice, and that's the point of it. So I don't know, it's just a bit sad to see almost the reversal of that, and saying, well, maybe we should censor people and censor their causes just because it's something that I don't agree with, so therefore we should censor it. The Bitcoin's about freedom. It's about holding your own keys, holding your own freedom, being able to transact freely person to person. And we don't want to move back into it's okay in some instances to be able to take that away from people, because that's kind of against the principles of Bitcoin. And that's all I've got to say about that.
It's interesting because seeing Ben Shapiro, for instance, standing up for Whoopi Goldberg not to get cancelled was really interesting, because he's like, look, I'm not like them. I don't expect, because someone's got a different view than me, to get cancelled straight away and to be thrown off and deplatformed and their whole livelihoods destroyed. But I find it abhorrent, absolutely abhorrent, what she said. But maybe she can learn from this and actually understand.
Yeah, but it's a little different when a political commentator makes a lifetime of making these statements versus a comedian who basically doesn't know anything. And that's probably why she didn't get fired forever, is because she's kind of stupid. But she's a really good comedian, and that's why they hired her. But let's move on to the exit question. A little bit more about fundraising. Like Dan was saying, who's going to get this money? So I want you guys to judge on 3 recent fundraisers. There's this Bitcoin one. They just got 21 million, or they got 21 Bitcoin. That's almost $900,000 today. There's the Ross Ulbricht DAO, where I think they've raised about $12 million. And then there's the Julian Assange DAO, where I've heard they've raised $50 million. I want you guys to pick one and tell me which one will be the most successful in actually helping their cause and why. So Ben, Ark, Assange, Ross Ulbricht, or the truckers?
I mean, Assange, he's already got, WikiLeaks has a lot of Bitcoin. But yeah, Julian Assange DAO, I hope will, obviously anyone who needs to have money donated to them, I'm sure they're doing it for a good reason, and good luck to all of them. But Julian Assange, I imagine, will be the one who comes out with the most. I don't think the truckers, they don't want huge amounts. They just want enough to be able to kind of tide themselves over while they're protesting. And it's good to protest. And, so that, but I imagine Julian Assange will be the bigger one.
Josh Shigala.
I mean, the trucks, there's like 50,000 trucks. It's going to be hard to distribute properly, and there's corruption could be involved. You don't know. It's a very difficult thing. Like Juan said, it would be better if every trucker had their Lightning network and stuff, and they would because people are decentralizing the fuel issuance now too to keep them warm in their trucks. So they're all coming in with jerry cans that they donate, and everyone's like keeping them. So it'd be cool, like, hey, have some sats for the jerry can, cool. But I think Julian Assange is really, really important, because no matter what you think of him, no matter on the left and right, we can all understand the concept that he is a political prisoner that reported some pretty horrific stuff that happened during the war, and very, very just important information to be exposed during war. And yeah, and he suffered for a very long time for that, for his craft. And so I would like to see this money being used. And you know, when I think about DAOs, you know, we're building one at the moment for the standard, and I really like, you know, no one really understands how DAOs work yet. Anyone that calls themselves an expert are not, because we're all making it up as we go along. We don't know how it really works. But the cool thing is how I can see it, how I can visualize it in the future, is that DAOs will always outrun every other version, because you're building a community and you're getting out of the way. Every other company has these people, you know, people wear Nike shirts and stuff, they market for them by wearing the products. But DAOs have the ability to really incorporate all the fans. And hey, there might be like 50 different lawyers that can help in different ways. So you can start to, you know, vote on which ones, or maybe use prediction markets. We don't know how. Maybe there's way better ways than voting, but I think it's a very, very interesting move on the terms. Like when I fell in love with Bitcoin all those years ago, I fell in love for the anarchic purposes of Bitcoin, and DAOs are just as much a love for mine now, because it's also a step towards a structured anarchy that gives scaffolding for rules, but not rulers. And I really love that as an evolution of in philosophy, of anarchic philosophy and action. So yeah, let's see what happens.
It's a very interesting and efficient form of capital allocation. Called them cooperatives back in the day.
Yeah,
yeah, DAOs. This is why I'm interested in all that stuff, and Bitcoin and as a lefty is, you know, for that very reason. But yeah, props to all these people who are building these interesting DAOs. It's great.
Well, we used to study that kind of stuff at BTC Jam when we were trying to do the loans, things like lending circles and local lendings and alternative ways to do it. And it's nice to see the DAOs coming on, although I don't know how it's going to work out. I agree with Josh. With the truckers, it's very difficult to see what the victory conditions look like. Do you buy every trucker a gallon of gas? Do you get them all a bucket of stew? Like, how is this a success? Whereas with Albright or Assange, it's a lot easier. Pay the lawyer fees, get them out of jail, do some PR, stuff like that. So it's a lot more straightforward. Juan Galt, which fundraiser do you think will be the most successful, and why?
Well, I would definitely like to see this modern day labor movement called the Freedom Convoy succeed. But yeah, I don't know who will do it. I think probably Assange. It's a big name. What are the other options?
Assange, Ulbricht from Silk Road.
I'd like to see him as well.
It's rough. There's something called the Innocence Project, which is about people that have been incarcerated unjustly and who are still serving time. That would be a good place for a lot of this funding to go, because it takes a much bigger umbrella and it has crimes that are much less, I guess, debatable, right? I mean, I think as much as I like Russ Ulbricht to come out on top, you know, I think his case is a little bit less clear cut, even as a libertarian, than obviously somebody like Assange or many other people in the Innocence Project. So I don't know. I mean, but right now I'm all about this labor movement.
Yeah, same.
Dan,
and to the point of the victory, just quickly, it really, a lot of it, what I've seen is like basic sanitation, buying, renting toilets and sanitation and making sure.
This sounds like a civilization. Who will make the roads and rent the toilets? You're making a civilization again. Damn it. Our society, I wanted to be an individual. I wanted to be disconnected to people. And then I needed electricity and I needed sewage. Oh, I could have gotten away. Oh.
No one wants to be disconnected. They want to be connected, of course. This is.
Oh, come on. If I go to another country and come back, you can't tell me what to do with my body. You can't make me get a shot. Yeah. I'm disconnected from you.
Well, I mean, what?
It sounds ridiculous.
But it
doesn't the air between us doesn't pass.
But this is
and all the molecules aren't connected.
That these
We're all separate and different individuals. Yes. Be an individual. Don't have shared sanitation. Have your own toilet. Don't
Well, a
share
lot
with
of truckers do.
Come
they have
on.
their own toilets, but they
Yeah,
need.
but they don't have
need
room
that-
for other people. How can you have? You can't have guests over.
They have
This
guests.
is society for one.
They share everything. In fact, they have the
communists.
crime has dropped in Ottawa by 90%. All the homeless people have been fed.
And the
there's
roads have
hardly
been
any-
dropped too.
all-
Like again,
all
it's
the
like there's
roads
no
are
traffic
clear.
anymore. Like-
There's traffic. There's single roads. You can actually park in Ottawa. All the parking's free now, and they put salt along the roads for the first time. There is food everywhere, hot food. It's extraordinary. If you look deeper than frickin' CNN, you'll see how amazing these people are. And Canadians are
It
such
sounds like a
lovely
commune.
people.
It sounds like a really great libertarian commune. Of course, they're also pissing on the Canadian War Memorial,
That's
stuff
such
like that.
propaganda, dude. They're polishing
it's
it.
just,
They're literally polishing
let these
it.
people together again, like, when they shit in the U.S. Capitol,
Look,
spread it on the walls. It's
look,
like,
there's always
that was,
in crowds
it was
of people,
Antifa.
there's
It
always
wasn't us.
freaks.
That was someone else.
There's
It was
always
someone
freaks
else.
in groups.
It's always someone else.
Okay, whatever.
All right, Dan Eve finishes out Ulbricht, Assange, or the truckers. Who's going to be more successful?
I think sadly Ulbricht is going to be saved, but not by a legal team, but by a president who's kind of the out wishes, right? I just think that it's that far. It's a sad case, but it's that far gone. I think from the truckers' perspective, ultimately they've been clamped down from GoFundMe to this new place, which didn't want to stop the funding because they weren't being dicks about it and taking sides. The government stepped in. There's also, I think, was it Ottawa that was saying that they're actually stopping people from bringing gas or giving them fines or whatever. So
the police
I think
stole
that's going to be
petrol.
That's like,
and they got the gas from a network
down.
of gas stations and a network of pipelines. All these people working together to bring them the gas.
Put it this
I think
way.
it's called the free market.
If you
Put it
don't
this
dig
way.
up
It's
your
called the
own
free
dinosaur
market. It's
bones,
not
what kind of
called force.
libertarian are
Put it
you?
this way.
I
Trudeau's
mine
got
my
so
own
much-
gas. I
Trudeau's got
refine
so
my
much
own
power.
gasoline. I have
If
a
you can,
mini
if you can
refinery
have-
for one.
If
No,
you can
that's
have
not how it
more
works.
blackface
You know
incidents as
That's just
Trudeau
being
than any other
facetious.
like president or leader in history, like all put together, then you've got the country under your thumb by the sounds of it, and he can put any rules that he wants ahead. So the fact is that I think that Assange should be the one. At the end of the day, he's exposing war crimes, and people like Tony Blair, who lied about WMDs, shouldn't be walking free and getting interviews and having their say on political issues, because they're assholes who lied to countries and led people to war. And their crimes should be exposed, not truckers who are saying, let me have some freedom, and who are being literally strangled by the government. The people actually who cause harm, cause death, cause violence should be brought to justice. Those are the assholes that should be. So I'm going for Assange, and I hope that they're the most successful. I hope all of them are successful ultimately, but I think Assange has got the most reason to.
All right, let's move on to the next issue. Check out WCN Clips on YouTube. We've got clips of this show from the World Crypto Network and more on WCN Clips on YouTube. Issue 3, Republicans and Democrats will both support Bitcoin. Here's why. A great new article from Pete Rizzo talks about how both Republicans and Democrats will get behind Bitcoin because Bitcoin creates jobs. As we've seen, the entire financial Bitcoin era has been created, all kinds of different exchanges and products and cryptos and all kinds of things, showing us that Bitcoin is good because it creates jobs. Joshua Shigala, do you think that both Republicans and Democrats will support Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing was that it's taken this long for them to get it. And by this stage, they've all got some Bitcoin. And this was always the plan, in my head, was like, get as many politicians as possible to invest in this stuff. Just like property, right? Where they're all invested in real estate, a lot of politicians. So anything to do with real estate, they try to keep passing laws that will keep propping up bubbles. No matter how big the bubble gets, they've got a new homeowners grant. If you haven't bought a house and you're outpriced from the market, we will give you $20,000, like in Australia, or $40,000 to buy a new home, but it has to be a new home, and all this sort of. And I think this is the sort of thing that happens when politicians are actually invested in stuff. The greed and takes over, and it's kind of a semi type of corruption almost, where they're like, yeah, we should let this Bitcoin thing pass because it looks kind of interesting. Really, they've got some sats stacked up themselves.
Well, both sides can certainly use it for fundraising it. Juan Galt, will both sides support Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, I think they should, and I think we should be careful to make Bitcoin become a partisan issue. That would not be good for anybody involved. Bitcoin obviously doesn't care who you are, where you're from, your name, your color, your birth date, your age, your gender. Like, Bitcoin really doesn't care. It can't care. It can't see that, and that's why it's good. And so yeah, people should recognize that at every step of the spectrum. This isn't a left-right issue. It's a authoritarian versus libertarian issue fundamentally, or in a sense, it's a freedom of choice and freedom to organize with your community as you wish versus the latter. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see more sort of left left-wing leaders kind of recognize it. I think it is happening. There's a lot of Democrats. There's a few Democrats that are sort of picking it up too. So yeah, that's my take on it. It shouldn't be partisan.
Dan, Eve.
Yeah, definitely. Like, politicizing it makes it like poo, right? Because then people they get fixated on the political side of it. Kind of like, let's be honest, like the fact that in the truckers thing was, it brought up right wing. It was like Tucker Carlson mentioned it, therefore it's evil. Rather than saying the reasons behind it and the reasons why this independent fundraising that goes straight to the people and that bypasses the censorship of a company shutting it down or providing their own opinion. So I think that's it benefits everyone, right? Because you look at something objectively without having the poison of politics making you think otherwise and try and justify for whatever confirmation bias reasons you have the reason why you should hate it. Let's just hope that a lot of because at the moment it does seem like from the Democrat side they're really not liking the environmental side. You've got people like esteemed Chief Indian Elizabeth Warren, who's very much against against Bitcoin from an environmental perspective. Obviously she's very well followed on social media, so a lot of people are automatically taking that side that Bitcoin is bad, and therefore it's a Democrat thing saying that Bitcoin is bad. You've got people, as soon as Trump says anything positive about it, or Melania says anything positive, you then go, oh, but with the right wing, the extreme right, the fascists. So it just poisons the well, right? Rather than people thinking about how Bitcoin is an apolitical tool and doesn't care, it's an open source apolitical tool that doesn't care about who holds it, who has it, who yields it. Maybe they should give some to Nancy Pelosi, because then it will make her portfolio even better, and then the Democrats will like it even more. No, I'm getting political now. No, it's all silly business. Ultimately, look, I don't care if you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, and you shouldn't care. You should just think about Bitcoin as at the core, what it does to society, what benefits it does have, and ignore the political sided stuff that's saying, oh, it's bad for the environment just because of X, Y, and Z. And look at the sources where you're getting that information from, and what they usually would say about anything that could be seen as a right wing or a left wing source, right? Because it happens on both sides. I've seen articles from right wing sort of publications that say that it's a socialist tool to democratize money, socialize money, and that's a stupid thing, because it's true and it's not in a way, right? The fact is that it's apolitical. So I don't know, keep the politics out of it, and let's just call Bitcoin for what it is, which is ninja ultrasound hard money.
It would be pretty interesting if Congress passes that bill banning senators and representatives from trading in stocks, but they leave open some kind of a crypto loophole, and they just spend the rest of their days trading in crypto under the table with the insider information. Ben, Ark, your thoughts? Is Bitcoin left-wing, right-wing? Will all the politicians adopt it?
I mean, this is why I became a little bit more vocal a few years ago, because I definitely saw like a lean to the right, and it kind of annoyed me because it's apolitical, everyone can benefit from it, no rulers, people power, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, well, I'm a lefty and big. So that's why I felt like I needed to kind of raise my hand up and try and make some balance there. and make it less. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like Bitcoin, ultimately, the protocol is apolitical, and it's always going to be apolitical. But you can create a culture within Bitcoin, and at that point, because there weren't many Bitcoin, less Bitcoin, as it wasn't as well spread. So you can create a culture which then represents it as being this leaning in this direction or leaning in that direction. So now I'm seeing within Bitcoin there's much more of a kind of healthy balance. I think as well, like when Bitcoin's sort of first impression was about kind of trading and making money, they're all things which kind of appeal to the libertarian ANCAP, but the greed aspect for a lefty socialist type it's not something which really appeals to them, and it kind of turns them off, and the people who are attracted to that, they're turned off by that kind of group of people. But then obviously you go beyond that, and you've got like this, monetary commons, which is owned and regulated by the community as a whole. Because obviously on the left, we've been looking at how to decentralize, socialize decision-making for hundreds of years. So it's very exciting for people on the left as well. I thought this article was very poorly written. So I'm very much an advocate of, yes, it makes better forms of private capital allocation, but it is a monetary commons. So there is, balance there for left and right. But I thought this article was a bit kind of rose tinted, like when he was talking about Bitcoin mining, creating all these jobs in middle America. And it's like, well, no, a Bitcoin mine is designed to be manned by like one or two very tired techies who just have to make sure that the machines don't burst into flames. Yes, there are some jobs where you initially set these things up, but not that many jobs. And then there was the whole, you can use it for sending value, for subsidizing, like, green renewable energy capture, which I think is kind of a bit of a murky area of research. Like for a miner to be profitable, it has to be on a lot of the time. So it's not like you can just put it on, flick it on, when your windmills aren't serving the grid, for example. So the article itself, I didn't really read the article itself, but I do like the fact that he's saying, yes, it's for Bitcoin is for everybody. And I do think in the US as well, I think this drug thing's kind of come at a good time in that, yes, people think it can be used by drug dealers. Yes, people could think it can be used by a political leaning of somebody, which they don't agree with. But I think ultimately, like more and more people are normies, as we said before, like they're starting to understand that it doesn't care. Like it's ambivalent. Like whoever wants to use it can use it. I've noticed that a lot in the way people talk about Bitcoin. Politicians talk about Bitcoin now in the US, that it's very much they've accepted that it's here, it's going to stay here with us, and now they just kind of need to adapt the way they do things to work with it or around it or whatever. So yeah, it's I agree with the article, but I don't like the article.
Well, acceptance is a major step. Moving on to the exit question, forced prediction against the magical predictor ball, predictor of predictors. Joshua Shigala, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week?
Yeah, I think it'll be higher next week.
Juan Galt.
Higher, probably. Maybe
Dan
lower.
Eve. Probably.
Maybe on the fence.
Higher.
Ben Ark.
What was it? Is it who won last time? Because I was the only person who said it'd be lower this week from last week.
Higher or lower?
No, but was it higher or lower last week?
I think it was lower
No.
last week.
Was it? Shit, so I lost and you all won. All right, so this I'm going to go lower again.
Lower again. Here we go. Most important part is what the ball says, Here we go. Shaking it may cause bubbles. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? My sources say no.
Ooh.
He's even got sources this time. Moving on to issue 4. Binance invests $200 million in Forbes, allegedly to boost consumer knowledge on Bitcoin. CZ, the president of Binance, says that media is an essential element to build widespread consumer understanding and education. Juan Galt, what do you think about Binance, raised by an ICO, chased out of this country and that country, had a plan to evade the laws, and now they're investing in Forbes? I'm sure that Forbes is going to give us great and critical coverage of Binance in the future. What do you think?
Yeah, it definitely makes me a little uncomfortable. I mean, I don't think we have a good track record of, or a good history of tech millionaires or billionaires buying up ancient media organizations and doing well with it, right? Like, look at what Jeff Bezos has done with the Huffington Post. I believe it's just, all of these things are basically, in some sense, they become kind of yellow journalism. Can CC do any better? Where does his money come from? Where did this guy come from? He like Chinese oligarchy? Is he part of the party, right? What does that mean for Forbes, right? Is Forbes going to become a crypto sort of slate or tablet type of thing, right? I don't know. It definitely makes me uncomfortable, but it also shows how desperate for money some of these news outlets are, right? Like, yeah, I don't know. It's real curious. Maybe they'll do some good stuff with it. Maybe they'll innovate. I mean, Forbes is somewhat of a modern media platform. They have this sort of blogging kind of angle where you can submit your own articles and stuff. Maybe they'll innovate. I'm curious, but I'm skeptical. And yeah, I wouldn't expect the most aggressive journalism from Forbes, as far as Binance goes. That's for sure.
It reminds me of a lot of when Binance bought CoinMarketCap, and everyone said, "Oh, it's obvious they're only going to report on coins that are on Binance." And the same thing now for Forbes. Maybe they're just going to report on coins that are on Binance. Ben Ark, your thoughts on Binance investing into Forbes?
I actually tweeted this out, and I just wanted to tag Binance and Forbes and just say, are we finally going to get microtransactions for articles? Just pay as you go. I want to read an article on Forbes. I want to read an article on the Financial Times, and I'll pay 10 cents. I'll pay 20 cents. And the publication press, I mean, the online press, they've been hammered by the internet. Journalists have been hammered by the internet, and this is a way which they could pull in revenue. And Yours was one of the first things by Alex Bosworth, yours.com, yours.org, was one of the first examples of how you could use Bitcoin over the Lightning Network. You could just like read a little section of an article, pay an invoice, and then read the rest of the article, and it appears instantly on the web page. Feels amazing to use. It's still one of the best demos to show people what Lightning can do, what Bitcoin over Lightning Network can do. And I'm incensed that it's not even been trialed by a big press publication. So I tweeted out, like, please, can this be when it happens? Like, the Binance will help them build this thing into Forbes. It's hopium. I know they don't have Lightning in Binance, obviously. And Francis Pouliot actually wrote a reply to my tweet saying, no, they're just going to use it to pump the shit coins. That's probably more likely. Yes, I agree. But I'm still going to hang on to that little hope that we'll have Bitcoin Lightning transactions, even if it's just for a trial period, just as, I don't know, around maybe the white paper day or something, just like a trial period, just as to demo the technology. Like, this is how you could pay for an article in the future. But I would love to see Forbes or a big news publication do that. So yeah, they'll use this new power they have within Forbes to like pump the shit coins. But I hopefully CZ deep down is still a Bitcoiner, and he wants people to experience Bitcoin. And if he does, then he would implement Lightning Network payments into pay-as-you-go articles on Forbes. That'd be great.
0.0. And it's interesting how far this discussion goes back, man, because Vitalik Buterin, in his Bitcoin magazine articles, used to put up about half the article, then put up like a Bitcoin wallet and a certain goal, like raise this amount of money, and I'll put up the second half. It was probably all manually done, but things haven't really progressed that much since then. The idea, no one wants to put any barrier in the article, even though a lot of these websites have started popping up scarier and scarier messages that I'm using an ad blocker, which again, I just bring up my blocker that blocks everything. And it's like, oh, you don't want that? Well, you don't even get to run any scripts now. Like, it's over for you. But don't you see this just escalating? And still, no one wants to do what you're saying. No one wants to pay 10 cents an article or a penny an article or even anything, because they've been trained on free. They just expect it free. Well, no, they want it free. They just don't care.
Yeah, that's true. But people do pay for subscriptions. And then there is like a group of users like me. I don't want to pay for a subscription. I don't want to give away my personal data on some website, like put my credit card details in. I just want to pay to read an article on the Financial Times. I'll overpay Like there's some articles which I've got to, and I would pay like 50p to read the article because it's a good article.
Totally.
I would pay way more than that article is worth, and probably more money than they would make from a subscription model anyway.
Or your data.
Yeah, exactly. And
sadly, they just keep going back. They love that subscription model. I would love to just pay Sirius for Howard Stern. I'd love to pay the cable company maybe just for ESPN, something like that. But it's not available because they want to sell you the whole package as a subscription, more entertainment, more magazine than you could ever read.
Yeah, this is why the music industry stayed away from singles and was really pushing albums the whole time back then, because they could sell it for $25, even though everyone just went for that one song.
Very much the same. Josh Segala, your thoughts on Forbes allowing Binance to heavily invest in their company?
Yeah, look, Forbes, all of these legacy media, they're really struggling. They're really struggling. But the interesting thing was, as they virtue signal with their big stick about when Facebook used Cambridge, when Cambridge Analytica used Facebook data to like do whatever they were saying that they did, in the back end, they are doing the exact same thing. All of these big media outlets, from CNN to Fox to Forbes, Reuters, they all have gone from a, hey, we sell magazines, we sell newspapers, to we buy data, we sell data, and that's it. That's how they're making money right now. And it's so disingenuous for them to go after Cambridge Analytica. I think it's good, they should, but without looking at themselves, without pointing at themselves, without going, hey, we all do this. And by the way, they all use like a single aggregator amongst left, right, every newspaper, they use the same aggregators. So it's a dying model. And yeah, the only way we kill the data is the new oil model is with micropayments, with nano payments, to make it even smaller than you, Ben. Nano, man. Yeah, it's really that's the model. That's the model. And Satoshi Pay is a really old startup here out of Berlin. Was doing the same thing. Really beautiful, where you pay per paragraph, and the paragraph turns from gray to and you just fund a little Lightning wallet and blah, 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 blah. And so if you get sick of the article halfway through, you pay even less because you didn't read the whole thing. So I think there's really interesting moves now by CZ. And what's fascinating is that crypto culture is starting to buy into these legacy media outlets. And it's a weird move. But what it shows me, because CZ is a very data-driven character, what it really shows me is that there is still a massive readership of these articles, because you don't only read it on Forbes. Forbes releases it and then it trickles out to all these other places, and it's sort of knock-on domino effect. So for CZ, it makes a lot of sense. And what's phenomenal is that these companies like Binance can just put 200 million. It really wouldn't even touch the sides. It'd be like, why buy ads when I can buy the company? So yeah, I think it's a really, really interesting move. Let's see.
It's also a great mailing list at Forbes. If you're thinking of future customers for the Binance exchange, people into money, people into magazines, maybe some older type money hasn't gotten into the Bitcoin yet. Yeah. Now they've got a Forbes, partnered exchange, or whatever they're going to call it, yeah. Forbes licensed, Forbes approved, right? You can get in there. So it's interesting stuff.
You always hear the one side of the deal, which is the money side of the deal, but money buys something. And I want to know what they bought. I keep using this, my daughter's toothbrush here, but I want to know what the other side of the deal was. They paid 200 mil for what? What did they pay for? Did they pay for constant for editorial rights? I don't know, because there's a lot of, journalism. I worked for a long time in mainstream television, And there is a lot of, when you talk to these old school journalists, I'm talking 50, 60 years old, they would talk about journalistic integrity. Yeah, that's a thing. It used to be a thing. And it was all about like not having a viewpoint, just reporting on a story and trying as much. And the science of taking your own bias out of a story is a really hard thing, because humans have an opinion and they really want to, you know, and maybe it was never there. Maybe it was always a facade. Maybe everyone always had it. But nowadays it's really in your face, either left or right or whatever. But seeing how this has evolved, I want to know the contract that they've bought. Can Binance just buy an art? Can they just write whatever they want from now on? I don't know.
They don't even have to put sponsored content on top. It's a great deal. Let's move on to the exit question. Cryptocurrency just bought. Oh, we're going to go to Dan. All right, we'll go to Dan first. Then we'll exit. Go ahead.
I'll be quick. Yeah, no, I'm with Josh about the viewpoints that I think that really ruined the news. And I don't know exactly what point it was, but I could slowly see, news turning from like non-biased factual things where they say this happened to just turning into opinions. And I'm not just talking about opinion articles, but literally going, this happened because of so-and-so, blah, 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 rather than just saying what the thing is, right? And that just really ruined the news. And I don't know, I think that I really don't like the idea that a company, it's almost like news should be something that shouldn't have, I don't know, it shouldn't have investment from someone that can change the news's opinion, because then it's not news, it's opinion, right? It's like a talk show. It becomes like news turns into some sort of talk show. But having said that, I'm willing to drop all of my morals because Binance have bought into Forbes and they're going to be positive about Bitcoin. So now I don't really care. But ultimately, it would be good if they could, rather than just become a shilling factory and have that side of it, to be, impartial, and maybe even have because of the fact that Bitcoin's apolitical, make Forbes a bit more apolitical. Maybe because Binance bought into them. Was her name not Shaka Khan? Oh God, Razzlekhan. Razzlekhan writes for Forbes right now, right? So maybe she'll be writing for Forbes from jail if she goes to jail. I don't know. I'm just saying it might happen. No, I think it's a bad thing that companies with an agenda can buy into newspapers, but I'm quite happy because it's Binance and they'll shield Bitcoin in some way.
Moving on to the exit question. We've already bought crypto.com arena. We've got FTX arena in Miami, and now crypto Forbes. What will Bitcoiners or Bitcoin companies buy next? And I'm looking for big things. So think very big. Think about the biggest thing they could buy and tell me what that would be. Ben Ark, what will they buy next?
I have absolutely no idea. But what I will do is I want to share a screen. Oh, can you enable screen sharing for a second? I won't be long, I promise. Yay. All right, so I want to share this screen here, just in case for anyone who hasn't seen yours before working, because it's great. It's by Alex Bosworth. It's one of the first examples of Lightning. I haven't got my Lightning wallet with it, so I'm literally going to click on this article here. I can read a little bit of this article. I want to continue reading, so I click on this thing, and then there's an invoice. Can somebody please pay that Lightning invoice so I can read the rest of this article, because I haven't got my phone with me. Someone whip out your phone quick, come on.
I'm whipping out my phone.
Or one of our lovely viewers could maybe pay for this article, and then I could read the rest of this article. And this is kind of the work for. There we are. Someone paid. Fantastic. Thank you, whoever that was. And then I can read the rest of the article. Now, oh, there we are. Nice. Thank you, Thomas. So it's great. It's a great experience, user experience. Like most adults understand that journalist integrity is important, but it requires resources and it costs money to do. And that this is why newspapers have to have like profit in order to be able to reinvest that into their journalists, so they can actually pay them to go out there and research a topic properly, which is why and I think people understanding that means they are willing to pay for some of this stuff. Like I am willing to pay for an article if I think it's written well and I think someone's taking the time to write it properly. I'm willing to pay for it. And I understand it's an important thing to have in society. And I think a lot of the, some of the sort of people misinterpreting data on the internet is them carrying that bias when there was some journalist integrity in the media sources which they pulled information from, and then they carry that across into the internet, which is just free for all. Anyone can just say whatever they want, and it appears legitimate. So
you know what you have these weird things happen where the internet turns from clickbait to like zap bait. Yeah, like how much lightning can we zap out of people by like having the most tantalizing little teasers at the front.
I'll share one more thing actually before I go. Before next person comes on, there is a great Lightning plugin, not Lightning plugin, sorry, WordPress plugin. I paid 2 bounties to try and get this thing made, and it wasn't made properly. But Boomy, who makes Albi, he's making a really good WordPress plugin, which is kind of like pay to read more. So you have, in a WordPress article, you have that little thing which is like, do you want to read more? Click to read more. And in this, it's a pay to read more. So you click on it, and it does the same thing yours did, but it just means that anyone with a WordPress blog can install this extension plugin, and then they can have that functionality. And it's also compatible with Bits as well, which is great. But that's a great project Boomy's made, and he'll be releasing this properly, I think, in like the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, please, like the financial, I can't see why the Financial Times hasn't done it. Like one of these big news publications, please just implement Lightning payments, small Lightning payments, so I can overpay for articles.
It's the chicken and the egg. Until everyone has Lightning, they won't do it, and they won't do it until everyone has Lightning. So you just have to wait. But now Ben has stalled enough. Dan, tell me something big that they're going to buy next. What's it going to be? Biggest thing.
It would be interesting to see Binance like buy a bank, right? I mean, they're worth a lot now. It would be a relatively sensible move, like a reverse merger type thing to something that's a bank that's already regulated in another country. So it would be kind of a logical move. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, how much buying power they have, but the Binance coin is pretty. 60 market cap of 65 billion. I'm sure they're sat on a good number of resources to be able to kind of put some money up, or become a majority shareholder or something like that. Yeah, I think that would be a big move, right? Or buy a country.
There
Binance
you go.
Buys Malta.
Binance buys a country. Juan Galted, Dan, just take your answer. Go ahead.
That's a great answer. I have no idea. I like to see somebody buy like the moon. Like how much is the moon? That's my conspiracy theory. I think that Satoshi's gonna return probably in 2069, and he's gonna cash out his 1 million Bitcoin, and he's just gonna flat out buy the moon.
From who though? From who?
Whoever owns it. Probably Elon Musk. He'll probably pay.
It's probably Moon DAO. Moon DAO.
Yeah, Moon DAO. Elon Musk's Doge Moon DAO. Yeah. By the way,
I like the moon. I had Planet on my list.
Yeah. That's a good one. And I love that project, that WordPress project. I'm right now running my blog on ghost.org, which is kind of like a more modern sort of blogging platform. I'd love to see an integration with that as well, but that's super cool. I would be willing to try that out.
Joshua Shigala, they've got their own government, their own planet, maybe the moon. What else can these crypto people buy?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely like to see a country, and I know that Roger was trying to do it already to sort of set up a new startup governments, which would be really cool, like startup countries, just to test different governance models, instead of having more of an eclectic mixer of governance styles, rather than you've got tyranny left or right. I don't know, you've just got the same thing. You've got the Westminster system or the American system.
Well, at least it's slow moving tyranny. And they could also buy, what was it? I like the planet. I like the big things. I think they should buy a TV station, but they kind of already have. If anyone's watched CNBC recently, it's wall-to-wall crypto, just like you'll find here on the World Crypto Network. And they talk about Bitcoin, they talk about Dogecoin, they talk about everything on CNBC. So if we already have a TV station, I think we should get our own movie studio and that every movie that the studio makes is somehow related to Bitcoin, and maybe even not about theft and crime and the Silk Road. Maybe it's just like somebody got Bitcoin donations and they bought a guitar. Like that's the movie. And somebody, they were in trouble, you know, they were on the run, they were getting a divorce or something. They got some Bitcoin donations and it saved them. Or somebody saved an old wallet and they were able to pay off their student loan debt. Just like some feel good stories about Bitcoin. And people are like, this studio, they only produce feel good stories about Bitcoin. How could that be? It's like, oh yeah, we bought them. The Bitcoiners just bought a studio.
It's a great that's a great example. And like I think like all of us are waiting for a decent like Netflix series on Bitcoin. And it'd be hard to do because you do it linearly, but I would quite like it if each episode was like an hour-long story. So you'd have like the Mt. Gox episode, and then you would have like the Binance episode, and then you'd have kind of the characters like intermingling between them, and then you would have like the the WikiLeaks episode. Like you just have these different moments in time which are quite significant, and they would all be different episodes. And you could make series and series of this thing, and it doesn't have to be linear. And you can have people kind of pop.
Well, and it also seems like you're describing the Bitcoin cinematic universe. We can get the same actors, like Mark Karpelis would be in multiple ones of these films. We sign that guy to a big, studio deal. You're going to play Karpelis in all these different films, and maybe if you're lucky, there'll be a spinoff just about you and your cat.
Matt Damon,
very neat one. He can be in charge of the studio. We'll put him in charge. All right, so I think that's a good answer for options of what they could buy next. There's a lot of good stuff. We also have a bonus issue because there's too much news. Crypto exchanges make their debut at the Super Bowl. FTXcrypto.com. Others will be running crypto and Bitcoin based commercials at the Super Bowl. What's your guys' idea for a good Bitcoin commercial? What would you like to see at the Super Bowl? Josh Segala, what would you like to see in your Bitcoin crypto Super Bowl commercial?
I'd like to see Lightning Network demos from Ben Ark.
That would be a good one. I'd love it if they showed like the classic Bitcoin thing where it's like, there's $1 million on here and we're going to send it in Litecoin for 10 cents or whatever. Bleep. Yeah. That would be a great, and that would be 30 seconds. You could do that pretty tight.
Yeah. Or some sort of like epic airdrop to everybody that you can scan a QR code and just instantly get some Lightning.
What's amazing is we have the technology to do that right here. Ben could make a QR code. We could all put some Lightning in it. Everyone could claim it, and we could do that on our own. We wouldn't need like a massive technology company to partner with our commercial company. We could also make the video. It's amazing the tools we have access to, but not the airtime. Juan Gall, what is in your crypto Super Bowl commercial? Is it Bitcoin? Does it dump on shit coins? What's going to happen? You're muted though.
I just want something that's not cringe and embarrassing. I'll take anything.
Come on. You know it's going to be cringy and embarrassing. And what's great about this is I didn't read the article. I don't know what the commercials are going to be. I want to be surprised when I watch the Super Bowl tomorrow. But yes, it's all going to be cringy and embarrassing for sure.
I would prefer no NFT stuff, like no ridiculous NFT stuff. But that's probably too much to ask. Yeah, I don't know. Some good-hearted like Bitcoin stuff would be nice, but I'm probably cynical at this point.
Oh, you got to make an NFT. Dan, Eve, what's in your crypto commercial, your Bitcoin commercial?
I don't know, some sort of like awfully like disgusting, cheesy, what's it called? In the UK, it was Q or like, the shopping channel, right thing. Like with the cheesiest ones, like the Sill It Bang advert, and be like bang, and the fiat is gone, and like this awful like splash with like lightning codes everywhere, and yeah, awesome. I think that would be pretty cool. Just awfully cheesy, awfully ridiculous, and maybe really arrogant as well, because Bitcoin's still pretty hardcore high compared to a few years ago. Obviously, it's dropped from all-time high, but it'll be back.
That would be pretty neat if they could use the background and like layer in a bunch of QR codes, and it changes every second. So everybody's pausing it, scanning a different code, trying to get all the money out of the commercial. And then you could say something like, we gave away $1 million in this commercial, and there'd be hopefully a bunch of people that get it, not just the one person claiming it first, but thousands of individuals getting a couple.
Okay, hear me out. What if it was a QR code that was constantly shifting, like like you have a million QR codes and then you use some algorithm to slowly transform them. And so people are just snapping pictures and every frame has a different public key. Dude.
It would be
There
cool,
it is.
huh? It would be cool.
Nobody's
I
gonna
like
do
it.
that.
Yeah.
Animated
I like
QR
it.
codes. Animated QR codes. It's a protocol that exists. It's useful for. They use it in Spectre for. Well, I think they're trying to use it. I'm not sure whether they've I think they have implemented it for when you do a partially signed Bitcoin transaction and the data's like, and then you have like an animated QR code. It's pretty funky actually the way it changes, and it can change pretty fast, and your phone can just read it. And it like streams it in blocks. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So you can totally do that.
Holy smokes. That sounds awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Ben
So
Ark is the best.
Yeah, Ben,
my
you've
It's not
heard
me,
all
it's
the
Spectre,
ideas.
It's not me. It's Stefan.
We're secretly fundraising for next
knows
year's
all the cool
commercial.
things.
Yeah, what are you gonna do, Ben? What are you gonna do next year when we get you your own commercial for Ellen Bits? And we
I
can
think
do
that the only
QR
thing with
code, all this stuff.
the only problem with the QR codes is they're hard to scan from afar. Like my phone doesn't scan a QR code from afar. I have got a crappy phone, but if the QR code's quite far away, so you'd have to like, and make the QR code really big, I suppose. But it is really good idea to have loads of them, like all over the place, and then people have to like go in there and pause it and then scan each one and try and get all the QR codes. I suppose people could do it on home. I know they watch it on TV on their 8K TV, so yeah, they could pause it and get the QR codes, and they could be like multiple, like they could have like multiple hits in the withdrawals. So you could, the Ellen URL withdrawals. I guess like by then, I mean like a wallet of Satoshi or something. They're a custodial wallet. I saw you use it before. They've got a hell of a lot of Bitcoin on there. And if they can securely in some way like get yield from that Bitcoin, so they have like big pockets for advertising, and they get like Ben Kingsley or something to explain to everybody that, download wallet Satoshi, scan this QR code, get some sats, now go buy an article on the Financial Times. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah.
Okay, I can picture it. You're like, we've got a 30-second countdown on the screen, and we've got all these QR codes flashing by, and they're like, they told us we could have $1 million for this commercial, and that we could hire Britney Spears, or we could just give $1 million away.
Nice.
Guess which one we decided on? And then in the last second, you have Britney show up, and she's like, I'm here, guys. And they're like, commercial's over. Like, the end. So there we go. We'll see what they come up with tomorrow. If it's as creative or hopefully even better. But let's go to the predictions. Dan Eve, a forced prediction. What's going to happen in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency?
I think we're going to hear about another hack. I reckon there's going to be another hack. It seems like it's hacking season, right? And I think there's going to be something crazy. There'll be another hack. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe even the real crazy thing would be, as we've already discussed, is that the $3.5 billion of $3.6 billion of Bitcoin that the feds have seized, or the DOJ, that gets hacked. That will be really interesting. So I think there's going to be some sort of hacking event. It may be even a DeFi one. There's one every week of those.
February, that romantic season when young men's minds turn to hacking. Ben Ark, prediction.
I don't really got any predictions. Hopefully people talk about how Bitcoin needs to be more private on the base layer, but that's kind of a contentious issue. I quite like.
That's definitely coming up in the Super Bowl. I really think Bitcoin should be more private. Don't you, Jim? Yeah.
I like the way people are discussing the way they've laundered. It reminds me of when they showed the Silk Road and they would teach people how to buy the drugs on Silk Road. It's like all these articles about how to launder money using Bitcoin, or how not to do it, because this couple did it and they got caught. So a lot more people become informed by learning how to launder your hacked Bitcoin gains.
That would also be a great Super Bowl commercial, how to launder $1 billion in Bitcoin. Juan Galt, what's going to happen in the Super Bowl? Or what's your prediction for the future? We've already talked about commercials.
What's my prediction for the future of Super Bowl commercials?
Or anything, Bitcoin, crypto,
or anything.
Could be anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
anything.
I'm going on a trip next week. I predict I won't be here, and something like that.
I predict that the bull market is not over, and we might be in for a little consolidation in the next few weeks. But then we're probably going for another new ridiculous bull market season. Yeah.
That's the best kind of prediction. Everyone likes that one. Josh Shigala, prediction?
Prediction is that the narrative is falling apart and everyone realizes it's a fucking flu.
No, the emperor has no clothes.
Yeah.
Dan, Eve, a story of the week. What happened this week that interested you, Dan, Eve?
Yeah, a story that interested me. Going outside, freedom from being, because obviously, you know, we finally recovered from COVID, but last week as the whole family, but we kept on, you know, we were testing positive more than like 10 days after. But we had our taste of freedom, and we were able to like go and walk and see places and feel the fresh air and the wind in our faces and the forest and the park, and it was all cool. Okay, that's a story of the week. So I was in a park just really quickly, and ended up being like 3 hours in the park because there was like an almost massive fight where three ladies, like, it was awful. Three ladies like started on a pregnant lady and started pushing her around, and then it was crazy. And then the boyfriend, it was like came on a scooter, like one of these scooters, like, but it was literally like one with like, it was like basically a kid's one. It was like, you know, like in Back to the Future when Marty McFly's got the girl's scooter. It was like that, and he was literally circling the park going, yo, what the fuck's going on? You're talking about my missus, something like that. And like, I couldn't help but laugh while I was talking to the guy and his wife who was pregnant, and he was trying to, it was a very holy guy, and he was like it was a very interesting, surreal experience. But there was big trouble in Little Southampton with some guy on a crazy scooter and all sorts of craziness. So I think I was quite good at diffusing the situation, which was good. But it was like after being stuck in the house for 10 days, I was kind of like, oh well, it wasn't so bad in the house for 10 days. I didn't have to deal with some crazy guy on a fluorescent scooter which was lighting up, circling around the park, saying "Oi mush."
When you said there were three old ladies fighting, I thought for sure the Monty Python. Oh, you.
Oh no, they were young. They were like, yeah. And the guy's wife. There was the wife and the guy. He got his phone out to film these ladies going crazy at him, and then all three of them and the kid of one of the ladies going, "You're a fucking pedo. You're a pedo." Oh my god, it was savage. Honestly, it was like, I want to go back home and I'm going to stay there forever. These people are crazy. So that's my crazy story of the week. Don't go outside. No, go outside. Just diffuse crazy situations as best as possible, because there's a lot of crazy people out there. A lot of crazy people.
Should have rapped at him. You should have busted out a fat crypto raptor rhyme.
Well, I think that they were way past that situation. They were crazy. They were like,
I mean, did they all work after you did your de-escalation? Because I love a bit of de-escalation. Did they all walk away? So you properly de-escalated the situation. You probably saved
so
life
it de-escalated, and then the guy and his wife happened to be like really holy. You know, one of those situations where the guy's like, "So tell me, I'm going to ask you 5 questions about yourself," and I was like, "This is really weird," but you know, I'm going to go along with it and just chat.
And they're all about Jesus.
Yeah. And he was like, you know, he was asking me the 5 questions. He was like, "Have you ever lied to anyone?" And he was like, the way he did it was like a proper sales pitch. Anyway, so while we're chatting there, and I'm like, cool, I've diffused the situation. I'm going to go home. It's pitch black. I don't even know where my son is. What the hell's going on? He was just like running around the park. And then out of nowhere comes this dude on his little, like, you know, his fucking hoverboard going, "Oh, you what, mate? You say to my girlfriend," like that. And then I was like, oh my God, it started again. Like, and then it literally all kicked off again. So I diffused. Once you've diffused the situation, go home just in case a nutcase comes back.
That's a shame.
Maybe the best story of the week we've ever had. Josh Shigala, it's going to be hard to top Dan's story in the park. What do we got, Josh?
Nothing much apart from we're just working at the Standard and the Voltura as well, dealing with regulators as freaking nightmare. Can't stand them. It's always hard work, dude. And moving things forward, and it's an adventure in crypto keeps going. Sorry, I should say.
So, like, are there tools for the regulation stuff? Because obviously you have to apply in different countries for different to different regulators, I guess.
I mean, generally the regulators globe are very similar. They all just they're just worried about money laundering, basically. And so you're constantly dealing with that and dealing with like proving that no one's doing that and showing your mechanisms that you do. But with the EU, you're not allowed to show any private info. So it's like a mix between showing how you're protecting that, but they don't actually care if you're trying to protect your users' funds. that they don't care about. Like and they wouldn't know. They just, all they care about is, are you reporting? Are you and they don't know what they're talking about either. This is the really frustrating thing. We had one the head of the regulator is probably more than I should be giving out, but the head of the
No,
regulator.
don't say anything.
Private conversation. Don't worry about it. It's just between me and you, Josh.
It's just,
Spill the beans, Joshua.
A lot of the early regulators that were trying to do big crypto regulation, they got very wealthy and then went, well, screw this job. I'm wealthy now. And now all these regulators globally are sort of just noobs that don't know anything. And they've got this big round circle and they've got all these squares, these cubes, and they're like, no, this doesn't fit. And they're just stupid, man.
Wow. Trailblazing, aren't you? You're going through all the pain so other people don't have to afterwards.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's been happening since since launching in 2015. We've been definitely.
Are there like resources for for companies which are going to act as custodians? Are there resources like within Bitcoin world which people can access to make that easier, that process easier? Like.
I mean, in one way, what's happening is that the regulators are forcing you, again, just like typical regulatory capture, to use only certain companies that have a license for the custodianships, like BitGo. They sort of went, they were the early ones, but and the one good side of it is that insurance companies are willing to underwrite these companies. So if there is a loss, then people are covered. So that is a positive side to that sort of specialization of custodianship. But at the end of the day, the main thing is to get away from that. And the problem is that we're being we'll probably be forced to use a custodian, even though we've been running since 2015 without a hack. And this is really unfortunate that they don't, recognize that. And it's just is what it is. But, we've still got, we're still in talks. Nothing's set in stone. We're educating them. They're educating us on the old school system, and it's a give and take. So,
and then ultimately, I suppose, like a lot of the standard IO stuff comes out of that experience, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the good thing with the standard is really we're focusing on decentralization maximalism, and we saw that with Eric Voorhees with Shapeshift. Shapeshift was always about this, like, I don't know, it's permissionless in and out, and then they got so massive that the regulators went, yeah, you have to take KYC now, and it was probably more the investors and the VCs that got involved. Okay, and then he got forced to take KYC, and now he's building smart contracts to then re-decentralize out. It's debatable if it's whatever chain that's on. That people can debate like all day long about that. But that's his mechanism of removing that regulatory burden, because that's all it is. Because once this comes in, all the people that are kind of in jurisdictions that don't care as much just get all the business. And they the crypto businesses are doing way more than banks anyway to curb money laundering. As soon as there's a massive hack, the community globally is like watching out for coins that are moving from a hack, or if there was a huge crime and people have been following those coins and they're trying to like wash them through systems. The community is the ones that's figuring that out, because we don't want to underwrite assholes that are hacking people or whatever, or causing crime that is hurting people. So it's really interesting, because old school banking, I think that they've been fined like $400 billion, and that's the fines. So think about how much they actually launder if that's the fine.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're knowingly complicit, aren't they? You know,
Yeah.
it's not like an innuendo, Charlie Shrem style innuendo on a phone call. It's, oh, you're a drug dealer. Okay, let me launder your money for you.
Well, yeah, and a lot of the time they like it because this money, and I have heard some really interesting reports about the 2008 financial crisis where the banks ran out of liquidity, not because of anything else, but the drug cartels stopped laundering, using the banks to launder the money.
Oh, wow.
So the banks had all liquidity locked up everywhere else. The only liquidity that they had was all this black market stuff, which was sloshing about. And some American politician wanted to cut it off, so they threatened to then cut it off, which they did. And then they were like, blame the really poor people that couldn't afford their mortgages. Sure, that had a part to play. That was part of the puzzle, but that side of the story never gets talked about, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean, banks are so like complicit with all this crap.
My favorite money laundering story is when they redesigned the night drop slot so that it would fit the briefcases that they use. So the briefcases of money would fit into the slot. That was great. But all I know is that Valtoro was hanging out in the park minding its own business, and the Standard came up on a hoverboard, and something went wrong. Juan Galt, story of the week. Go ahead, Juan.
Yeah, so New Orleans is opening back up slowly, and Mardi Gras is happening again after 2 years of not happening. So that's kind of exciting. I may or may not be in New Orleans right now, and yeah, they're starting to, you know, people are preparing to party for like a month. So that's good. That's fun. Yeah. If you want to check out Mardi Gras.
Would you consider beads to be an alternative currency? Do you find yourself heavily investing in beads, perhaps taking off your shirt to get some beads, something like that?
Yeah, I'm stacking beads. Yeah, I'm stripping for beads. Not very successfully, but that's, yeah.
It could go up in value, you know. Elon Musk likes Dogecoin. Could always be.
No, people
beads
collect them. Yeah. No, people are like, oh yeah, people are proud of their collections of weird Mardi Gras necklaces. And yeah, there's like a whole, they're like collectibles. I'm sure they'll be throwing NFTs at people next. NFTs of beads.
That sounds very cool, Juan. You'll have to tell us more about Mardi Gras if you go.
I will.
They are relaxing mask mandates all over the U.S. California, Nevada, dropping their mandates. I think California in 3 days. Nevada dropped it just the other day. Coincidentally, we have the Super Bowl this weekend, so maybe Nevada wants to just make some more money. Might not be quite so much about safety and health.
For the science, obviously.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But I think we're running out of time. So thanks to everybody for watching the show. To be sure to give us a thumbs up down below, subscribe. If you haven't already, put a comment out there. It's a very dramatic show, lots of politics. So maybe you guys can have a fight in the comment section too. We got it all going on here. So thanks so much to everybody for joining us. Thanks to Juan for being our guest. Until next time, bye.